Yeah, I didn't read the book and I didn't look at the synopsis of the book, but here we are. And the fact that I was able to actually finish this movie, unlike fucking Cuckoo last night, it's already doing better, but not much. But anyways, welcome back, and once again, thank you for trusting me with your full spoiler movie reviews. That thing I do where I watch movies and then I tell you all about them. As always, unpaid and unsponsored, but also kind of drunk tonight. Have you ever had those Topo Chicos tequila with lime, and it's a hard seltzer thingy? Yeah, if you want the effects of tequila, but you don't actually like drinking tequila, I can not recommend enough. My tummy hurts. Anyway, spoilers, all the spoilers. If you don't want spoilers, go ahead and scroll. I won't be offended. Spoilers. Okay, here we go. This is the 2024 It Ends With Us, a movie based on the book by Colleen Hoover. It's supposed to be directed by Justin Baldoni, but I guess technically directed by Blake Lively, even though she wasn't supposed to, but that's just the rumor on the street. But also directed by Ryan Reynolds, who wasn't even supposed to be on set, but somehow had a hand in this, supposedly, word on the street. Which apparently he wasn't even supposed to be a part of this, but if we're going to talk about things Ryan Reynolds wasn't supposed to be involved with, one time, my senior year of high school, he came to my hometown and he bought a coffee and it ended up on the front page of our local newspaper. Anyway, so what is It Ends With Us about? So Blake Lively is Lily Blossom Bloom. Yes, that's her whole name, Lily Blossom Bloom. Well, she lives in Boston and her dad died, but her dad used to beat the shit out of her mom. And so at his funeral, she actually has nothing to say. So after the funeral, she goes back to Boston and she is opening her own flower shop because she's a botanist. Lily Blossom Bloom is a botanist. And anyways, one night she's on the top of her apartment building. She's just sitting on the edge looking at the skyline, and this man comes out of nowhere up the stairs and he throws a fucking chair, and then he looks at this random woman he's never met before and he's like, "Can you get down off that ledge? You're making me nervous." You know, after he just beat the shit out of a chair. And anyways, they start talking. Now, his name is Ryle, but he's also Justin, you know, the director. So Lily Blossom Bloom is talking to the director, and the director happens to be a neurosurgeon who lies to her and tells her that the reason he was beating the shit out of the chair is that he had a really rough night because one little boy shot another little boy and he died, and that'll come back around again later. And then they're talking, and she kind of drops into the conversation that one time she lost her virginity to a homeless man. And somehow it spirals into, "I would really like to have sex with you." But they don't do it then. But that's our meet cute. So anyway, she finally gets the keys to the building so that she can open her flower shop. But it's a lot of work because it used to be a cafe. And then this lady who is Jenny Slate, hence the reason I am Tammy Larson at the moment. It wasn't to make fun of anything. I just really love Bob's Burgers. And I really love Jenny Slate. Anyways, Jenny Slate walks in and she's a housewife. And she's like, "I could really use a job. But I don't like flowers, but I'll work for you anyway." So Tammy Larson and Lily Blossom Bloom become besties. And then it turns out that the fucking director is the brother of Jenny Slate. And so she brings him into the building. Now Lily Blossom Bloom and the director start dating. And everything goes fine for about an hour out of a 2 hour and 10 minute movie. Well, one night Lily Blossom Bloom's mom comes into town and they want to go to a restaurant called Root. So they go. And it turns out it's being run by the homeless guy she had sex with one time. But apparently it's a lot deeper than that because they went to high school together and he went into this building because he was planning on killing himself, but apparently he saw her in the window and she was so beautiful that he decided not to kill himself. Or something to that effect. Well, anyway, apparently she started feeding him and supplying him with stuff so that he could just live in the abandoned building by himself. And they got really close, and that's how they ended up having sex. And hence the reason she had sex with the homeless man. But I guess they lost touch because he joined the Marine Corps. But now he's back in Boston and he has his own restaurant called Root, and that's where they're there. So after that, Lily Blossom Bloom and the director are having a nice morning in the apartment. He's got a frittata, I think it's what it's in the oven. And he's all distracted trying to give her a good wienering. And it starts to like smoke and catch on fire and stuff. He goes to take it out and he grabs the hot pan and he pulls his hand back and she ended up being behind him. And he elbowed her in the eye. And she's freaking out because she's having flashbacks of her dad hitting her mom. And she feels like that's what happened. And she pushed him away. And then he cut his hand on the glass on the floor because the pan broke. Because he dropped it because it was hot. And that's why he elbowed her in the eye. So his hand is all bandaged up, her eye is all black and blue. And supposedly that's what happened. Well, they meet with Jenny Slate and her husband later on to go to Root. And her old boyfriend / homeless guy sees her eye and sees his hand and freaks out and threatens the guy. And then he goes to the flower shop the next day and gives her his phone number. Says, if you need to get out, you call me. Well, then the director proposes and they get married like on a whim. And he goes to put her phone on the charger, but he dropped her phone and the case slid off, even though we don't see it. And apparently the ex-boyfriend's phone number was in the back of the case. And so the director saw it and freaked the fuck out and threw a lamp. And then they argue and he tries to get out of the apartment. He goes on the stairwell. She's trying to chase him, trying to grab him and hold him or whatever. And she falls down the stairs and he's trying to bandage her up. There was some other stuff too, but it turns out that apparently, because she herself admitted on the fucking rooftop scene that she's an unreliable narrator, that when he burned the frittata, he actually hit her. And that when she was trying to grab him from behind on the stairs and stuff, he actually grabbed her wrist and threw her down the stairs. Which, like, don't get me wrong, I'm not questioning anything. If that's what happened in the book, that's what happened. I'm just saying they needed to make it more blatantly obvious, because even when they went back to the flashback, it still looks like he accidentally caught her in the eye when he burned his hand. And honestly, even the stairs, when they showed the flashback, still kind of looks like an accident. I'm not saying it is. I'm not defending anything. I'm just saying if you're going to make a movie about it, I need to see a little more blatant, because even now I'm questioning what actually was it. But that doesn't make up for anything, because he did try to force himself on her. And while we're here, we do need to talk about the fact that the big R does happen in marriage. That is a thing. If you say no, that is it. It is donezo. If you say no, and it happens, that is the R. One no is all it takes. But let's move on. So she leaves him and she goes to the old boyfriend. And she stays at his house for a little while. And then she finds out she's pregnant. And then she gets her own apartment. And she's still running the flower shop. And the director comes by. Everything's good. He helps put the crib together. But obviously they're still not getting together. And she tells him, hey, I want a divorce. And he's like, okay. And then she goes into labor. And they're like holding the baby and whatnot. Which, like, if the baby is that size at birth, she is... I feel for her down there. It was like a football. Anyway. Well, firstly, they're going to name the baby after the brother that the director had that turned out to be the brother that was shot and killed by his brother. And then he wants to get back together so that they can raise the baby. And Lily Blossom Bloom tells him if she had a husband that was beating the shit out of her, and then Lily Blossom Bloom tells him if his daughter had a husband that was beating the shit out of her and pushing her down the stairs, would you want her to stay with him? And he's like, no, I'd beg her to get out of that. And that was it. That was the end. Although there seemed to be some sort of spark going back on a few years later with the old boyfriend. The end. Now, did I like it? No. Don't get me wrong, I've sat through worse. God, have I sat through worse. But this wasn't like the worst thing ever made. But the reason I don't like it is I feel like the pacing is really, really weird. Like, you can definitely tell two different people were working on this. When I say pacing, I really do mean that, because, like, the timeline is weird. So Jenny Slate announces her pregnancy at one point, and then in the next scene, she's already, like, big as a house pregnant. Then in the next scene, she's already had the baby. So time is going, like, fast and slow all at the same time. Out of a 2-hour movie, an hour and a half of it is literally just build up. And then, like I said before, we do have a couple of moments of violence, but to me, they don't look like violence. Like, if you're going to do a movie about it, I feel like it needs to be a little more blatant rather than have me questioning. And then I'm really weird on the ending. Now, me personally, I've never gone through this myself, so I can't account for somebody else's experience. But it didn't make sense for him to be that self-aware. But overall, I think it's great. They want to bring getting out of those situations to the forefront. I just don't feel like they did it completely justice. But again, I've never personally been in that situation, so I couldn't tell you if that's right or if that's wrong. Overall, I'm going to give it like a 6 out of 10. It was okay, but I don't think it was doing anything new or innovative. It's a 6 out of 10. Okay, bye. She is the lily of passion, a party soul full of vinegar and glitter.